Welcome to another episode of Natural Bliss Podcast for a Better Quality of Life. I'm your host, Joyce Wheeler, and I want you to go ahead and stop by heavenlybodieswellness.com. I have a lot of holistic products there for you. I also have services on majesticchair.com, so you can go over there as well. And today, my guest is Jada Jones. And Jada is a professional tarot reader and Reiki master teacher. She is originally from Ohio in the United States and is currently living in Albania. She first discovered Reiki in Okinawa, Japan, where she studied for years to become a Reiki master. She also dabbles in astrology, past life regression, and all areas of spiritual healing. In her free time, you will most likely find Jada eating, reading, listening to music, which are her three passions. Welcome to the show, Jada.
Thank you so much for having me on, Joyce. I really appreciate it.
So I love the fact that you're like including so many modalities into your work. So tell me, how did you get started doing this?
So I actually was originally gifted a tarot deck when I was about, 12 or 13 by an aunt of mine. So many, many years ago. And I actually was self-taught. So I never took a class and I learned how to read the cards intuitively, book and all that good stuff. And, started reading professionally. Of course, years later, I was living in Okinawa, Japan, and I met this woman who got a tarot reading from me, and she asked, have you ever considered Reiki? And I had never even had a Reiki healing session before at this point, which was kind of odd because I was into spiritual stuff. So I said, no, I'm really interested. And she was doing the one-on-one, training classes, certifications. I thought it sounded like the best place to do this because I was in Japan, which is
right.
The source of Reiki. And so I started the class, and my teacher master at the time, she said, most people take level 1 and they just kind of stop, right? And then, but I was so interested in it that I went through level 2 and then finally level 3 and got my master certification.
So what brought you to Okinawa?
So I was for the U.S. military. And so that's kind of how I ended up there. And I'm a librarian by training, which ironically, you will see him a lot in this.
I love that.
So I, started doing like tarot classes and at the library where I worked on the military base. So I was getting
cool
that way. And then spent a couple years in Germany after that doing kind of the same thing. And now I'm here.
So for our listening audience who might not know what Reiki is, could you give us a little background about what Reiki is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Reiki is, it's known as like palm healing or hands-on healing. And basically what it does is the practitioner uses their own kind of body as a vessel to manipulate the energies, which in turn can heal the person that they're working on, the patient. So this can be anything from emotional healing, physical healing, clearing out some things, balancing chakras, all of that kind of stuff. So it's one of those things I feel like that you have to do it to believe it. And this is whenever I have students, I always will say this because there isn't really a way to explain it, right? I do Reiki and most of the time I don't even touch the person. So I'm, this far away from them and it still works. And you can do it distance, of course. I can send Reiki to someone in a completely different country and it still works. So
Reiki has always interested me. Like you, before you started, I've never had a Reiki healing experience at all. So, and I find it very interesting that we can pass energy through the universe or the air, or and connect with people long distance and help them without even having to be there. So why do you think that is?
I believe that there's a source energy, right? And I think depending on your belief system, you can think of that in a number of ways. The Japanese, as far as the original tradition of Usui Reiki, believe that the source energy is actually in the center of the earth, and it happens to be right in Japan, where the source energy comes from. So the idea is that the initial first Reiki practitioner was there in Japan, standing on that spot, and was able to absorb that energy from the earth. And then I like to think of it kind of like vampires. You know, you have whoever bites you and turns you into a vampire is your master. But this is how, and I love telling this whenever I have students because they laugh, but it really is true. You can only be trained by a master the other way. And it goes obviously down the line. So theoretically, we are all directly connected to the original Reiki master.
Right. So our connection is a little sketch, I'm noticing. You're kind of, it could be
Sorry
either
about
one
that.
of us. It could be you, could be me. I don't know. I've had issues back here before, but I don't edit. It is what it is. You know, we're real people, we're real situations, using real technology that screws up, you know, so this is life. Welcome to it. So with the energy, can anybody do this? And also, can somebody learn Reiki by not being present with the person? So with the energy and doing Reiki, if you wanted to say, I want to become a Reiki practitioner, I see that there's online courses, but I know of other people who do Reiki and they say that you actually need to be in the presence of a Reiki master. What are your thoughts on that?
The classes virtually, and it's no problem. The part where it gets a little tricky, because at the end of each one of the levels, the master has to give you an attunement, and it can be done, you know, virtually over camera, but I kind of would have to tell you, okay, turn around because I need to do something behind you, and then turn back around and then sit down. So it comes with a little bit of extra instruction and work, but it works just fine.
Okay, because I've been told, like I said, I was told by other Reiki practitioners that no, you can't do this online. You have to be, but you think that it works either way?
Yeah, and I have certified several different Reiki practitioners, and I think it's been fine. I think it is ideal to be in person, but not necessary.
So in your experience, have you ever had a client that was apprehensive about this modality? Tell me
Yes.
tell me about some of the experiences you've had.
So I love this question, and actually my favorite clients are those who are skeptical or either completely don't believe in this kind of stuff, because the response that they have after the session is always like, wow, I really, really didn't expect that. So I have a client that comes to mind who was having some really bad back pain, and he didn't know why, and he had gone to the chiropractor, and he'd gone to the doctor. There wasn't really much wrong. They just said, maybe you're straining too much. So he had gotten to the point where he tried everything. So he thought, sure, I'll give it a try. I don't believe any of this. I don't believe it's going to help, but at least I'll lay on the table for an hour, right? So afterward, he kind of got up and was like, well, I don't know. I didn't really feel anything. I'm sure it was nothing. And then the next day he calls me, oh, wow, I woke up with no pain and I can't believe this. And when's the next time you can do this? This is amazing. And, so I love those kind of results, especially when the client does not expect it, and even better if they don't believe it.
So with his back pain, how many sessions did he need before he didn't need to come to you anymore? Or is this like an ongoing thing?
So it probably should have been an ongoing thing. We did 3 sessions and he felt better and it wasn't hurting anymore. So he didn't come back to me anymore after that. I don't know at that point if it was, permanently improved or not. I imagine if it started hurting again, he'd probably call me back for another appointment. But some things, especially if it's, a long-term health issue or particularly a long emotional issue or childhood pain and things like that, will take multiple sessions. But you do get to the point where it's just maintenance, and maybe you just need, 6 months later, I really need some Reiki, and then you can, go in. I don't feel like it's something that you would need to do once a week or once a month forever.
So one of the big things that's in the holistic world right now is trauma healing. Mm-hmm. Healing from trauma. Can you talk on that a bit, and about how Reiki can help people? Maybe give some examples of some of the people you've helped.
Yeah, absolutely. These are the clients that I tend to work with the most. because emotional healing or trauma healing are things that you can't go to the doctor and get, a prescription for or something. Well, I guess technically you could, but, not one that's going to be really long lasting or particularly helpful. So I really love this because what I do, as you mentioned, I'm a professional tarot reader as well. So I like to combine tarot reading and Reiki. So the client comes in and we have about a 15-minute consultation. I do a 7-card tarot reading and each card represents one of their chakras. And so I'm able to, through the cards, assess where their chakras are at before even going into the Reiki session. And so I usually will tell clients, don't tell me too much of anything that happened. Don't tell me what's going on. Let me just look at your chakras because those centers in the body are where the trauma is being held. And so we want to release that. Yes, definitely. And
I did not know.
Yes, and I didn't know this either, but I learned it so much that you can physically pinpoint the location where the trauma is being held and then pull it out and remove it. So once I do that chakra reading, I'll usually go a rundown with the client of what I found, and they're like, yes, that's exactly kind of what I'm dealing with. So I might say, okay, well, you're having some, if your third eye chakra is blocked, you may be experiencing this inability to kind of connect with spirit when maybe previously you were really good at that, and inability to hear your intuition and that kind of stuff. And say, wow, yeah, that's true. And a lot of times the trauma is being held in an unexpected location. So, if you had sexual trauma, for example, you would expect that to be maybe in the sacral chakra, but sometimes it'll be in the cranial, the third eye or throat chakra, wherever. So you never know where the trauma is going to be held. And that's why I love doing the tarot. But the really interesting thing to me about using Reiki for trauma healing is the side effects that people generally have after this. And I always will say in the consultation, you can definitely have some side effects the next day, severe headaches, things like that. Or if I'm working heavily on the throat chakra, sore throat, or you lose your voice and things like that. And I like to say, well, that's how you know it's working. So clients will always tell me, yeah, I had the worst headache. It was awful. But then once it cleared up, I felt so much better. And this is my favorite part of the practice, because to me, this is the most impactful thing that I do, the most helpful. Of course, I'm not a doctor, so if I help your physical ailments, then great. But for me, it's the emotional and trauma healing that I really, really love.
Yeah, and that's really important too, because there's sometimes, and I've talked about to other people about the trauma and how it stores in our body, and how, no matter what we do and how much we feel like we've dealt with this trauma, we may still have underlying issues. Mm-hmm. I've never heard anybody say that it was attached to the chakra, so I find it very interesting. I do know that there's chakras, when not tended to, can cause, like with my hand, I immediately went to look at the chakras and go, okay, well, it could be the root or it could be the heart. Which one is it? And deal with that. I think it's very unique that you combined the tarot with the chakras with Reiki. How did you come up with that? Was that just intuition?
Yeah, so it seemed really natural to me. Once I started doing the Reiki, they seemed to go perfectly hand in hand and together. And I can't imagine doing them separately and not really combined. Obviously, I do tarot readings without Reiki, but it makes sense to me because I'm able to gain insight into the client that I'm about to be working on your healing through the cards. And then my favorite part about the combining of the tarot and Reiki is at the end of the Reiki session, we will come back and do a post treatment consultation, and I'll pull another 7 cards to see what improvements we've made in the chakras. So to me, like I said, it just goes hand in hand. It would be really strange for me to not combine the two.
So do you only use the tarot cards when it comes to like people dealing with trauma or emotional issues?
No, I do the tarot readings for pretty much any subject that a client wants, but it's generally, right, if you're going to get a tarot reading, it's because you have some issue. It's usually not, hey, everything's great, let me go have a tarot reading and see what's going on. So usually it will lead into, okay, well, I also do Reiki, and I strongly suggest that you have that for some healing of these wounds. So even if the client is coming just for a tarot reading, I generally find that they will end up having Reiki afterward. because, you know, I think that clients at the end of the day, when they're seeking this kind of spiritual help, it's because they want something to improve, right? They want, so if I'm just reading the cards and I tell you, well, this is this is the situation, they would like to know, okay, but what can I do to make it better? And to
Right.
me, the next step would be Reiki.
Right. I think you kind of misunderstood my question a little bit, and maybe I worded it wrong for you to understand. As you know, we all had different ways of communicating, and my husband and I have a problem with this, and we've been married 16 years, and we still, because our communication style is different, he'll be saying something, I'm like, I don't get it, what are you trying to tell me? And he's using words that I understand, but it's the way the words are being structured that I'm just going, I don't get it. So the question that I want to know is, do you use tarot and Reiki together just for trauma or like emotions? Or do you use it for like the man with the back pain? Would you use tarot before with him to find out what's going on with him?
So yeah, I understand that. A great question. When it is a physical pain issue or something strictly physical, not linked to emotion, I do not use the tarot cards.
Okay.
So it's really interesting though, because now that you mention it, I'm kind of thinking, well, why not? Because there could be an emotional aspect to their physical pain, right? Maybe I'll start doing it just pretty standard. Yeah.
And
especially in the case of that client, because he had no idea where the back pain came from. He didn't injure himself. He wasn't, you know, playing sports or anything. So I might add that in the future.
well, especially if somebody like him doesn't know, or like with me, with my hand being locked up, trying to figure out, okay, what exactly happened? Did I strain it holding my tent in the wind, or is it something else? You know,
Right.
like I said before we started the podcast, I have oracle cards, and I used my fairy deck, and it was telling me to take a break from business, and I did not listen.
Right.
Well, because I had this 3-day event coming up, and I had to prepare for it. I'm like, I can't take a break right now. So is that why I'm dealing with this? Because I needed to take a break from business. Okay, why do I need a break from business? What is it that I need to be focusing on? You know, questions like that. So like in my situation, would you be able to help me with that?
Yeah, and I think that in a situation like yours, what would potentially come up in the cards would be something about you needing to take a break and rest and recover and stuff like that. I suspect that is what would come up. And then to me, that would then be easier to kind of work. I wouldn't even necessarily directly deliver the Reiki to your hand. I think in that case, if that is what came up, I would direct it to maybe kind of like your head here to get you in a better mind space to take the break that you need, stuff like that. So actually, thank you for that suggestion. I think it's probably a really good idea for the physical pains too.
Maybe I need to go ahead and shift to what I do to like consulting with other, but that's something I do seem to be good with, is giving other people ideas of how they, you know, I remember there was a photographer who wanted to get her work out there, and she was asking about different ways she could do it. And it had to do with like, she was doing, I want to say landscape, but that doesn't sound right because that's like gardening stuff. Had to do with basically, gosh, it like deserts and forests, you know, that type of thing. And, you know, I had said she should consider maybe putting her art up in gyms, because it seemed like it was very calming. And that way she could be seen, you know, maybe make some coffee cups, make a calendar, you know. And she's just like, oh my gosh, I never thought about doing this. Maybe I need to change what I do.
You definitely hit it right on the head. So I think that would be a good path for you.
Maybe, but you know, I'm really, you know, like you, I'm very much into the holistic healing and to doing energy work, and I'm kind of going that route. I think energy work is very important because it's an aspect of our life and our health and every aspect of our life that's very important, and something that we're not told about. We're not told how important it is to keep our natural vibrational frequency, you know, tended to. because
Mhm.
most people neglect that, and that can be a reason for poor health, also finances.
Absolutely. Yes,
You know,
definitely.
the reason that you're stuck in your job, or you keep
Mhm.
attracting the same type of man time after
Mhm.
time after time. You know,
That's a big one, especially with my clients, because over and over they'll say, "I just don't understand. He's literally the exact same man as the last one, just in a different body." And I think about that. Now say it again and hear what you're saying. There's some patterns. Your energy frequencies, others' energy frequencies match where yours are. So if that's what you're attracting, you need to bring those up.
right. And that's something that's important. So do you teach, well, because you work with the chakras, so outside of you using the cards and the Reiki, do you go into more detail about the chakras and how people can tend to them?
Yeah, but it's basically what I give is kind of a brief overview. For example, if I find that someone's throat chakra is blocked, I'll say, you may feel like you don't really have a voice to speak up at work or something like that, that people can really recognize, because I don't want to get too much in the weeds and scare people, but I will bring in aspects of all kinds of different things. Astrology is one that I generally bring in. I'll say, well, right now Mercury's in retrograde, so that explains what's going on, and just kind of brief overviews, not too detailed.
So let's talk about your astrology. How did you get into astrology?
So I originally got into astrology when I wanted to start teaching tarot, and I knew that for me that there are things in the cards that align with things like numerology and of course astrology, particularly with like the major arcana cards that are all linked to an astrological sign, and the different archetypes in the cards that talk about the Sagittarius or a Capricorn energy or something like that. So it was already something that I had in with my readings just naturally. I would say, okay, well, you got the Chariot card, and that is the card of Cancer, and Cancer has these kind of qualities, and blah blah blah. And so I think it was before I even realized that I was doing it, and that was just from my personal knowledge of basic astrology. And so then I thought, well, I should take this deeper, especially if I'm going to teach tarot, because I think there's so many important factors to the card, to each individual card. It just adds additional layers every time. So I would do these workshops at the library, and the one was on numerology in the cards, and then the one was on astrology in the cards. And so I just started reading a lot. I watch a lot of podcasts, YouTube videos. I wouldn't consider myself an astrology expert. I don't do birth charts and things like that, but I think a basic knowledge, especially when dealing with, things, woo-woo things, then it's really, really useful to know. So I just kind of read as much as I can.
Cool. I love woo woo things.
Me too.
I like the word too. It's fun. Woo woo. Makes it sound so much fun.
It is fun.
I didn't know that about the tarot cards connection to the astrological signs,
Mhm.
which is really weird because a good friend of mine, she's into the cards and astrology. So it's kind of strange that she never mentioned this to me.
Yeah, it is. Especially, there's really big indicators, like if I'm doing your reading and your sign comes up as the signifier card, that tells a lot about what the purpose of the reading is and what we're looking at and things like that. Or if you're asking about, your love life and am I going to meet someone, and then a card comes up that signifies, a Libra, then I'll say, well, have you met this Libra? And generally, if it's not necessarily somebody with that sign, it's usually somebody with the qualities or characteristics that are known of that sign. So it is really helpful to kind of narrow down what the cards are saying, and just give my intuition a little bit more help.
I think it's interesting too that you're also looking at the numerology aspect of it.
Numerology is fascinating to me and has been. I think numerology probably was my first woo-woo thing that I was interested in, even before tarot cards, because I was one of these people who would see the numbers everywhere, 222, 1111, you're one of those two. Yeah. And so to me, even I was a small child, I thought there was something to that. You don't just accidentally see 1111 30 times a day, right? So I started reading things even as a early teen, tween, from the library and things like that. And so once I started reading the tarot cards, and of course they all have numbers, and so immediately, so when I started to learn more and read into it, and yes, the numbers do correspond to what you would know of the numerology meanings and things like that. So, and it has a Kabbalistic connection as well, which I'm not really well versed in, but a lot of the things translate, like, so a 2 in tarot has a similar meaning of a 2 in numerology, as well as the 2 in the Kabbalah. So it's all really synchronistic.
All interconnected. Yeah, and it's funny too, because then the numerology also goes to the sacred geometry.
Yes.
which is something that I'm into, but it's like I don't get all the scientific stuff. I'm not a scientific type of person. So like some of it is kind of going over my head. Even with the numerology, as much as I want to get into it, because I believe that numbers, my daughter says that numbers are a universal language.
Yes.
So, I'm not a math person either, but I do have an interest in the numbers. And even with making my jewelry, especially with my bracelets, I tend to do like 3 beads, a spacer, 3 beads, a spacer,
So you do it automatically without even realizing kind of why. Yeah.
Right. But I did realize it. It's just the pattern.
Yes.
The pattern of it is just attractive to me. And then you think about the number 3, that 3 blind mice, 3 wise men, 3 bears, so what is it what does 3 represent?
So 3s are generally they have some conflicts and a little bit of struggle, but they require like collaboration. So it can be, a lot of times they'll come up when regards to a work situation, or if there is someone else that your partner is dealing with that's causing issues in your relationship, his mother or something like that. So it's conflict, but not so much in a bad way. It's more of learning from the other person and collaborating in order to grow through whatever the conflict is. It's a really sacred number.
Yeah, it is. And sacred geometry, it kind of has a different meaning, kind of like the opposite of what you're saying. It's, more of a number of unity. That's the only word that's coming into my head. And I'm reading and I'm trying to like retain, and I'm trying to not read a lot at one time, so that my brain is not going, oh, what did I just read? Because I'm not a scientific person, but I hear I'm interested in these scientific things and numbers, and it's just really weird because that's not who I am by nature. So let's
I'm not a math person either, so that is funny.
Yeah, my husband's a math person. I'm a word person because I do a lot of writing. So it's like when he needs spelling, he comes to me. When I need math, I go to him. So it's great. We compliment each other that way. It's like, okay, I can't do this, but you can, and vice versa. So let's talk about your work with past life regression.
So with the past life regression, I had one personally several years ago, and it was so amazing and eye-opening because I feel like just in that 1-hour session, I was able to understand some of the issues that I have in this life. I think we kind of walk around with issues, even some that have carried over that we don't even know where they come from, right? So that was really great and really helped me to be able to heal those things, even though they were from a completely different life. And that's, when you get into Akashic record healing and that kind of stuff, which I am interested in, but definitely not an expert in at all. But so I took a class on the past life regression in order to know how to do it. And it's very similar to medical hypnosis. If you want to quit smoking and you go see this hypnotist and that, it's very, very similar process. It's basically a guided meditation. And so, I guide the client down through as far back as they'll go, ask them kind of key questions to see, what do you see when you look around? And then the client will start to recognize the location. And they'll recognize, oh, this was for me, there was a kind of a palace. And I think it was that maybe I was some sort of royalty in Egypt, Persia, somewhere in there. And it was many, many years ago, thousands of years ago. And what was really, really interesting to me is that I had the same mother in this life as I did then. And also when I walked to the lake and I could look at my reflection and it was the same, my hair was different, obviously, but same face. And so my teacher at the time who was doing the guided practice, she was saying, well, you've got some issues to heal with your mother, because if that was just one life all that long ago and you're still incarnating as the same mother-daughter team, you've got some more work to do, which is true. I can say for that, from this life, we definitely, had some issues. So that was what made me really interested in it. And I saw how healing it could really, really be. I don't use the past life regression very much unless a client is really kind of adamant and they're very familiar with it and they're okay with the potential consequences, because it brings up so much things that you didn't even know you had, things that you're still dealing with trauma from a completely different life, which to me is fascinating. But people who have issues with depression and maybe they had a decently good life and they don't know why they're struggling with these things. And my parents were great and I had a great childhood, and why am I so upset about it? And it's a lot of times it's because of that past life. So I use it very carefully, because I think that not all clients would be ready for that kind of wound opening. So
it's not just the past life issues that we deal with. We also deal with our ancestral issues.
Yes.
So it's like, wow, we're like bombarded.
So you're pretty much set up for failure at the beginning. But they
so not only do we have to deal with the issues I've experienced in this life, but then also carry over the ones from the past life, and then the ones from my ancestors, and I have no idea where it's coming from, or even what the real issue is. Just having no clue. And think about all the people that are walking around who have issues, and like you said, have very happy lives, had a happy childhood, everything in their life is really good, but they're not happy, or they're depressed and they don't know why. And this could be part of the issue, right?
Definitely. And I have come across clients who have, for example, abandonment issues and have never been abandoned in this life. And so generally you would think you would need to have experienced that in order to be carrying that issue, right? But it's like, no, no one's ever left, no one's ever died. I don't know where this comes from. And I'm like, I did. So.
Well, that was like with me. Yeah, I've had a fear of drowning. And people are like, oh, well, you probably experienced it. I said, no, I never, ever experienced it. And they said, well, maybe it was from something you watched on TV. And I said, I don't think so. I don't think so. So I did do a past life regression. And it turned out at one point, somebody was trying to drown me. And it was kind of like, oh, this is where it comes from. Because I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, why do I have this fear? I was so much in fear of drowning. My first husband and I used to go fishing. I had all my kids go to swim class and learn how to swim because I was afraid they would fall into the water and drown.
Isn't that, it's funny though, because once you kind of know that that's where it comes from, it's at least easier to pinpoint and maybe heal it in this life. So that's why I really love that. The Akashic record and Akashic healing is something I would really love to learn more about and get into later, because, my teacher who did this for me, she can actually go back into the Akashic record and heal any of those wounds, both ancestral and yours from your past lives. And so she did some healing with the mother-daughter relationship with me and my mom. So I don't know, I guess we have to wait till the next life to see if that worked. But it was instant results after she did that. So it would be pretty cool.
So what were you experiencing from that? I mean,
it kind of like the feeling of if there was like an empty hole or something that felt missing, it just kind of went away. It really was like a patch, like she put a patch on all the little tiny holes that are throughout my body. So that's the best way I can describe it. But it was instant, and that was probably the most instant and noticeable kind of spiritual healing that I've ever done.
Wow, it sounds intense.
Yeah.
I've never done anything like that. I did go to an energy worker at one point because I feel like I have blocks. I'll try to do things, and I have a pendulum I consult. I speak with the universe, with my guides and ascended masters. It's like I'm not just going, oh, hey, I'm going to go do this. I'm consulting, being, should I do this? And I'm told, yes, I should. But then it doesn't work out. And I'm going, why? What blocks do I have up that's preventing me from going forward?
So what's interesting about those kinds of questions that I'll get from clients is my explanation for that usually is either, maybe you do have some sort of a block, but if that's not it, then you were guided to do that because you were supposed to fail at whatever it was for the lesson, right? Which is very annoying. And I always, I have conversations with my guides and I'm like, great, thanks again for the lesson. I got it. But I do find that when we are told no, or when doors are closed, especially when it's something that you feel very strongly that you were guided to actually do, it is because of the lesson that was supposed to be taught. And maybe it takes us a while to even figure out what that was, if even we figure it out in this lifetime. So that can be frustrating, I know.
Yeah, because it's like when you're saying that, I'm just like going, I thought about it, and it's like I don't think I was supposed to learn a lesson. If I was, I have no clue as to what it was. Maybe it was just a topic I needed to change. So I have something to ask you.
Okay.
I'm very intrigued by the name of your website, Healing Crab. Where does that come from?
So I am a Cancer, and I have always kind of believed that Cancers are naturally intuitive and naturally healers, right? So when I was trying to think of, and friends and family will joke that I'm always crabby, because we're emotional beings. We tend to be moody. These are all true things. I know we get made fun of on social media a lot, but it's true. And so
my daughter's a Cancer.
Lucky you.
You know what? I am lucky because, even though Cancers are very emotional, they're very tentative. She's a very caring, very loving person. If somebody needs help, she'll help them. So it's just not about the crying 1 minute, laughing the next minute, or just, or blowing a situation totally out of proportion.
Yes.
There's a whole lot more to Cancers than just they are very strong feeling people, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
Cancers, I don't think it is either, but I know a lot of people do, but I also think that that's what gives me the ability to be a healer. And so I think I'm crabby, and I like the crab as the Cancer symbol, and we have this tough outer shell, but it's like soft on the inside. It's all perfect for the Cancer. And I thought I didn't want to call it tarot or Reiki or something specific, because I knew I do all these different things, and I'm continually adding to the different offerings that I have. So, but generally it all falls under healing. So I thought Healing Crab.
When is your birthday?
July 4th.
My daughter's the 14th.
Okay. So we're that perfect, right in the middle kind of Cancers, yes.
Yeah. But, once again, it's like, that's like me. I'm a Virgo. And my daughter's always like, everything always doesn't have to be perfect and right. But when we go to a restaurant and we're done eating, I'm piling the plates on top of one another and cleaning up the table. She's always like, Mom, you're such a Virgo.
I really love these things though, because usually if you ever see, YouTube videos where they're making fun of the different signs, and it's funny because it's true, right? We really do have these qualities, but it's like, each sign has such amazing things that as long as they're embracing the, positive qualities, you can really, really benefit from these things. So, but I have friends who make fun of me a lot. But, I'm the only Cancer of my friend group, and I think that's because we don't do well together as multiple Cancers. So we tend to not, be in a relationship together or a close friendship together as well. But Yeah, it's really funny because I'll be telling a story and I felt like, and then I feel like this and I feel like this and I felt, and my friend said, you just said I feel like 9 times in one story. It's like, what did I do? That's how I feel. I don't know.
But the interesting thing though too is like you had mentioned like an astrology with the birth chart, which has effect on us also, as far as I don't know everything about the birth charts, but I do know like we have a moon, certain moons, and that we're born under, which gives specific traits to us, like our business ethic, there are our financial ethic, and the way we do things. So that plays a big part in it too. I know my daughter's also very much into astrology. That's like her big thing.
Awesome. I think I'm one of these rare, I think they call them perfect cancers, or perfect whatever your sign is, because I'm a Cancer sun, moon, and rising, which is extremely rare and also makes me very cancery. So yes. I was telling a friend I'm actually incapable of making a decision with thinking. Incapable. It's not possible for me. I only feel. And she's like, well, don't you think that gets you into trouble? No, it actually works out pretty good most of the time.
Well, yeah, we do need to take some time to sit back and reflect on our feelings before we, respond to somebody. I think that's a human trait that everybody can work on.
Yes.
just not cancers. Because I know for a while I was so quick to respond, and as I matured I realized, what, I need to take some time and reflect on this to see how I really feel about it, how it makes me feel, and then figure out what my response is going to be. And the thing is too, you can react or you can respond. Responding is much better than reacting, because reacting is normally, this you said this to me and this is how it made me feel, and and then we misinterpret things as human beings.
Definitely, especially when you were talking about the communication thing, and we just had an example of it, because you asked me the question, I think pretty much with the same words you asked the first time, and then I understood it, completely different than when you did before. So definitely reflecting was better in that case than reacting. So
no, I actually reworded it the second time.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah,
because I was like, that it made perfect sense the second time. It's like, so
yeah, I reworded it because I realized, and that's one thing I don't like about communicating, like through messenger or through texting, is because sometimes people don't get to see your reaction, feel your body language, or hear the tone of your voice, and become insulted by things that you say. And I've learned, I have an associate's in business, and the class I took on business communication was the best class I ever took, because it taught me, how I needed to be careful with choosing my words, especially when you're writing it out.
Yes.
How like the word "you" can be very attacking to people.
Even your punctuation that you use in the text messages can seem aggressive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just, I mean, we're all emotional human beings, our cancers more so. Yeah, but we need cancers in this world. You make the world a better place.
Oh, thank you.
But I say it because my daughter's a Cancer and she's a beautiful person, inside and out. She's just amazing. And anybody in my book would be lucky to have her as a friend, because Cancers are so loyal.
Definitely loyal, yes. Caring and kind, and like you said, willing to help anyone who needs it anywhere.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yep. But not necessarily reciprocated for that.
Yeah, and the unfortunate part about that is because we are so sensitive, we take it very personally. When generally speaking, the person isn't meaning to hurt our feelings or neglect us, they're just unable to give as much as we do emotionally, I think. And so that's something I work on pretty regularly, is attempting to not take offense to something somebody said, or not think, oh no, they must not like me because she used a period in the, that this is a daily struggle.
So what do you have planned for your future?
So I really want to, so you've seen the website, it is not the greatest and it is currently being updated. So then I'm going to do this kind of big relaunch, especially I just moved to Albania. I've been here 3 weeks now, left my government job, did the whole refresh, great resignation or whatever they're calling this. And so I'll have the website up and running. I'm going to do a big relaunch. And then I would, in the future, I plan on launching a course, and it's going to be about tarot reading for self-healing. So I'm going to incorporate all of these different, I know there's lots of courses you can take on tarot reading, but I think that's pretty niche. And then some different small aspects of Reiki and some numerology and astrology and things like that for self-healing and personal healing and growth. And so launch that. And then I really, really would like to get trained in Akashic record healing and that kind of stuff as well, because I think that's the kind of one thing that I'm really interested in that I'm not currently doing.
Gotcha. So why Albania?
So I answered this question a ton lately. There was a really cheap flight from where I was living in Germany to here. True story. And so
okay, just hold on 1 second. Here's Jada. Oh, there's a cheap plane from Germany to Albania. Yeah, let's go.
I feel like we should go. So I had started realizing that I was going to leave my job, and I knew the business had started growing, and I had so much clientele that I was turning people away because with my full-time job, I just didn't have time to do it. So I knew that I was going to leave and that I wanted to live somewhere, continue to live in Europe. So I did some research, where it has good weather and good food and all that. And I first looked at Greece, but Greece was really, really expensive, and Albania is right above Greece, right? So I took a trip, flew on my cheap flight over here, and fell absolutely in love with it. The people, the culture, it's beautiful. It's right on the water. It's Mediterranean, similar to Greece, but cheaper. So I came back and visited 5 or 6 more times on those lovely cheap flights, and then finally got up the nerve to say, hey, I'm leaving, quitting this job, and moved on over.
Awesome. So do you plan on staying there? Do you plan on going someplace else in the future?
So I want to say at least a year. I'm trying to do the digital nomad thing that they're calling it, but I'm not particularly good at moving every 3 months or something like that. I need a little more stability. So I signed a year lease at my apartment, and then I figured I would just reassess after that. I am in the process of applying for residency, which will last me 5 years in case I do decide to stay. I really, really like it here, but I also am one of these people who likes to experience other places by living there instead of just visiting. So I've, kind of lived all over the world. And so my guess is I'll probably get antsy and want to go again in about a year.
So are there any modalities in Albania that interest you that you'd like to learn more about?
I've been talking to a few Albanians, and when I tell them what I do, they always say, oh, you should look into coffee reading. And so finally I asked, I said, what is this coffee reading that everybody's talking about? So apparently they make this really thick brew of coffee. They put it in their little, espresso cup, they drink it, and then they let the coffee kind of go down the sides of the cup and it sticks to it. And then they can see things in whatever shape and images that the coffee leaves. And apparently this is like several thousand-year-old practice here. And so the one guy said, you ever see those ladies sitting out, and they're just drinking coffee all day in the middle of the day? That's what they're doing. So I'm fascinated by it, and I need to improve my Albanian a little bit before I can go talk to them, but I would love to learn about that.
So that it sounds kind of like TV,
yes,
reading the TVs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I said, I used to live in China, and they do something similar with tea. And the Albanians are funny because they, will claim that they invented everything. And so they're like, yeah, but we were doing that first.
Except with coffee and not tea.
They're right. So, yeah, they also claim they invented coffee, though, which debatable. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very, very old, the coffee practice here. Really, really old. But it is in other places, too. So.
Right. Right.
But while I'm here, I'll let them have that.
It's, let them think what they want,
right.
And add that as part of their culture.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they were the first ones to come up with the coffee reading. Maybe other countries where coffee beans grow There's a country because of the sea, I believe, that's like, oh, my geography is horrible. I can see it on the map.
Cambodia?
No, South America.
No,
I
drawing
think
blank.
it's with the sea. Colombia.
Colombia, yes. Yes, that is where coffee was actually invented, I think.
You know, well, I don't think, you know, it was invented. It was probably discovered because it's a bean and it grows in a tree. It grows
Right.
in a bush or a tree. I don't know. I'm not a
Mhm.
coffee drinker. So everybody around me is, but I'm not. I love the smell of coffee, but I do not like the taste. I don't even like coffee candy. No.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm a tea drinker, so we could talk tea. And the thing with the tea too is that the tea has medicinal purposes, you know.
Right.
Not that coffee doesn't, but it has to be done right. But
Yeah.
anyway, so what would you like to leave our listeners with?
So I guess the thing is, if you've been considering Reiki and just really weren't sure about if it works or what to do, I would say definitely do it. It's only beneficial. It cannot, actually one of the Reiki founding principles is that it cannot cause harm. So even if everything is 100% great, it's still going to be beneficial to you. And then also to kind of know that if you are interested in learning to become a Reiki healer, definitely look into that. You know, I offer the online classes, or if there's somebody local, wherever you're living, it's really useful. The great thing about the Reiki training is that it is in 3 levels. So if you want to just go level 1, where you're able to do healing on yourself, your pets, you know, your family, that's usually where most people stop, and you don't have to become this professional Reiki healer or anything like that. And so I would highly suggest trying that as well.
Okay, sounds great.
Awesome.
So if they want to contact you, and you do consultations?
I do. Mm-hmm. So
So
my website, don't mind it right now while it's under construction, but my Facebook and Instagram are both at Healing Crab as well. And so I answer the Facebook messages and Instagram messages pretty quickly.
Great. Well, Jada, it's been great having you on the show. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to be here. And for all you out there, remember just to keep on shining your light. Enjoy the rest of your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Jada, for being here.
Bye.
Bye.